Okay, welcome back to Beat the Lockdown. Today I'm joined by Pete and Tom for part 2 of our Play by Numbers playlists. The formula is simple for this one. If a track has a number in the title, then it was considered. So number 2, so part 2, we'll start with Tom. What were your 3 picks?
My 3 picks were Trainwreck 1979, Death from Above 1979, 1979 by the Smashing Pumpkins, and 1973 by James Blunt.
Okay. Peter.
I've dug out some visual aids here.
Lovely.
You've got
22 days.
Yeah.
19 by Paul Hardcastle, and thirdly, might surprise you, I went for 1985 by Bowling for Soup.
Oh, it was a strong contender. It was a strong contender.
I went for 7 Seconds, Trainwreck 1979, and 1985 Bowling for Soup.
Oh.
Yeah. So let's just quickly have a quick look at that. So that means
I'm the only one that went for 19 by Paul Hardcastle. That's an absolute classic.
Yeah, but it is, but I don't find it particularly easy to listen to song.
Oh,
in terms of its message and being ahead of its time, and the style of music being a bit of a game changer. But it's not a song I can go back to and be like, oh yeah, this is a banger.
I'm the opposite of that. I do think it is. Like, I can easily listen to it and just loads of little bits about it, like the sort of from the repetition of 19 and the all of it. I just love it. It's great.
I can tell. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an odd one, this one, because I think of all 3 that we did that were released this week, this was the one I found hardest. Trainwreck 1979 was head and shoulders above all the rest for me. I had never heard any Death from Above up until it was probably a couple of years ago now. Heard this track and was like, why have I not been listening to them? This is just insanely good. And yeah, it's just such a powerful noise to be coming from such a small group. It's a duet, isn't it?
It's literally drum and bass. Which is kind of my problem with them. Like I'm because they are just drums and bass. They create just with that. It's pretty impressive, but I also find it just a little bland because that's literally it. And
I guess there's serious limitations to what they can actually do.
Yeah, I mean, with those limitations, they've created something that's pretty impressive. But even then, it's just, it is what it is. And I liked it. It was definitely in contention for me as well. But that's kind of where they kind of fall down with me. Is that it's just a bit. I'd like a bit more going on,
But that particular track, I don't think it's noticeable that it is just two instruments. I think you could play that to somebody who doesn't know that about Death from Above, and they wouldn't know. Beyond that, the 2 that have definitely gone through are Trainwreck, 1979, and 1985 by Bowling for Soup. I'm interested to hear why you picked that, Pete.
Well, I'd never heard it before. That's not the reason I picked it. So for me, it was totally new. And as soon as it sort of kicked in, I was like, oh yeah, I used to really like this kind of music. Even back in the day when I liked Sum 41 and Blink 182, I only ever knew what was the big one that they did, Bowling for Soup.
Oh, why is this gone for me now?
Did they do Stacey's mum?
Oh no, they didn't. That was Fountains for Wayne.
Right. Yeah.
It was "Girl All the Bad Guys Want."
Yes. Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I remember that track, and I liked that, but I didn't really go investigating Bowling for Soup to see what they were all about. So this was kind of new for me, and it's not the greatest song ever. In fact, there's probably better tracks in that, but it pushed some buttons for me, and I was just like, yeah.
I mean, again, we've talked about this in the past, but you'll have watched the video in listening to it, Pete, and I quite like the video. It is very much of a time in that it screams MTV2 around that sort of 2000 to 2010 era. But I just think it's quite funny, like quite cool how they've done this whole kind of garage door shuts, reopens, and it's them doing another sort of version of the previous music video. And I actually think this song gets better with age, in the sense that it's kind of that where did your life go when you were desperate to do this? You were listening to this artist. And it's almost kind of become it's come back on itself cyclically, because we're now talking about it in the same fashion that
they're talking about Donna.
And I just think that's sort of, whether they meant that or not, I don't know, but that was sheer genius on their part. And it's a fun song, like you can't deny it's relatively basic chord progression style pop punk song, but it's it's fun. It's a fun track. Tom, you picked James Blunt.
I like James Blunt. It's as simple as that, really. I like the song. I listen to that song. It's just an easy song to listen to, because I tend to, with these ones, with the playlists, is just watch them or have them on in the background rather than pay much attention to who's singing it, what the song name is, anything like that. And then anything that piques my interest, I'll then look into a bit more and see if it's something like, would I listen to it again? Is it something that I would want to look for more tracks? So it piqued my interest. I knew it was him from his voice when it went on, but I just quite happy listening to it at the end there. And then unfortunately got absolutely sabotaged. Well, my mood got sabotaged by Mambo No. 5 coming on straight afterwards.
Well, I think the less said about that, the better, really. I mean, as Jack Whitehall says in what's the program called?
Fresh Meat.
Fresh Meat. What's wrong with Blunters? So I've gone full circle with James Blunt. I've not gone full circle. I've almost full circle. I have basically when You're Beautiful first came out, and everyone initially loved it and then immediately hated it. And anybody who had any sensibility towards alternative music, he became that sort of hate figure. It's like, oh yeah, you like James Blunt, do you? Like Coldplay had become as well.
Coldplay weren't quite that bad, but
I don't know. He sort of became the word, the artist that people like. You like. I bet you like James Blunt, don't you?
Well, speaking of that, like how bad it was is that my mum doesn't really like. She's not into music at all. But she bought Back to Bedlam on CD, and that's how bad it was. Like if my mum bought it, and then I remember being at her house, and I was actually asking her to turn it off because it was actually giving me a bit of a headache.
That's where actually I think he's evolved as an artist, though.
I totally agree with you, and I actually think that song's all right. I've got no problem with that. I think You're Beautiful and maybe a couple of other tracks from that first album were so polarising that people that didn't like it were just not unwilling to give him the time of day ever again, which I think is slightly unfair to the guy.
But then when I've got to know him through Twitter and bits and pieces like that, he just seems to poke fun at himself, and the fact that people find him so polarizing. He almost talks about himself in the third person as, James Blunt is shit by James Blunt.
I think in general, most people's dislike of him came from the incessant airplay of two or three of the singles from that first album, and also he's got a very distinctive vocal performance, which I think he's toned down a little bit in his latter albums.
It's very hot, isn't it?
Yeah. But he went on this fantastic.
That was really nice, Pete. That was really nice.
Yeah. That it was like listening to James Blunt. That he went on this fantastic trip of appearing on various talk shows and the Top Gear appearances he had as well, where people just went, "Oh, actually, this guy's all right." I mean, I'm still not keen on his, like, how many times I heard the phrase, "I'm still not a big fan of his music, but he's all right. I don't mind that James Blunt now." And as soon as you make yourself more warm as a person, and people warm to you as a person, they're more willing to give your music the time of day, and therefore will actually listen to it for its merits rather than just, "Oh, I'm so sick of hearing that song." And I think a lot of people's attitudes returned to him when they found out a bit more about, his military history, and the stories he was telling about, strapping a guitar to the side of his tank and stuff like that. And he is a funny guy, and he comes across as, just somebody, you're right, Tom, who will just poke fun at himself. But 1973, I mean, that was number 4 for me in this list. I very, very nearly went for it over Bowling for Soup. I think it's just a really well constructed song. I mean, we touched on it a minute ago, but I think we would probably all agree there are 2 songs on here that if we never heard again, it would be too soon.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. Less said the better.
Yeah. Just a dark time for pop, that was. It's every time I sit there and go, "Oh, modern pop music's so bad," I sort of retreat back to my cave and go, "Oh yeah, but
I mean, at least Lou what's his name? Lou Vega.
Yeah.
Lou Vega. I mean, at least he only did the one thing, didn't he? If he followed it up, I don't think anyone heard it. But Steps made Steps. This was the base of their whole. Ended up being a 6-7 year career.
But yeah, I mean, Lou Vega. I actually at the time wasn't. I didn't have such a strong feeling against that song. What's ruined that song for me now, beyond the fact that it just sounds, it's really aged, is the second it starts, I just hear the Bob the Builder version, and I just
I forgot that existed.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, sorry about that. Whatever you do, now you remember that, don't start that track again, because it just, oh my God.
So no one else put 22 Days, which I'm a little peeved about, because that's such a good tune.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this earlier in the week, didn't we? About the fact that I really like the 2220s, but I'm not so enamoured towards that track. I know it's your favourite, but
I've still got all 4 singles on CD from that album. I think it's a cracking album, and it's a shame that they never really took off. I think they split up. Probably not long after that album came out. And
I don't think I've ever heard of them before.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the shame of it. It deserved to be pretty big, but it didn't do much at all.
Yeah, I mean, the band I always kind of compare them to, not necessarily because of the sound, although they've got some similarities, but in terms of the fact they're a band that I was well aware of but I really wish more people have become aware of, is Hope of the States.
Oh yeah, same. I still listen to them all the time. Both albums.
And some of the Hope of the States stuff is so good, and yet got so little traction in that period of time. I think the biggest issue with bands like 2220s and Hope of the States is that indie music of that time, where bands tended to get their traction, was them being played in this swathe of dance floors that were suddenly accepting of bands like Hot Chip and other bands of that ilk, like Maccabees and what have you, but also bands like the Strokes and the new cool coming from the States. And the problem with bands like the 2220s and Hope of the States is they didn't really have a real sort of dance floor banger that like you would hear and then go, oh, I'm going to buy that album. You kind of had to delve into some of the latter pages of the NME and go make the effort to go to a record shop and buy one of their singles or buy their album. And I'm so glad I did. I mean, I got the 2220s album as someone bought it as a birthday present for me. But Hope of the States, I think I picked up various bits and pieces of theirs at music shop in Camden somewhere.
They put a lot of their money into the packaging for their singles. So I've still got I've got it on CD and vinyl. There, is it there from the first album? Nehemiah. It's got like a heat. It's like a black cover, but when you like put heat on it, like put your hands on it, it then has you can see the picture underneath. And they did like die cut stuff, and they just wanted to put out something worth having physically.
We've mentioned it in previous videos. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this the randomizer segment I do on Instagram for Beat the Lockdown, where I'm just going through my swathe of CDs and vinyls and sort of taking photos of these things and just to sort of show the artwork, because somebody really thought about that stuff and sort of thought to do it. It's like one of the ones that went up this week was Maximo Park vinyl 7-inch.
I saw that.
On the B side of it, rather than it being a track, it's inscribed with the lyrics from the track, and it's just really cool.
Is that going?
Yeah, I think it was going missing.
Yeah, I've got that as well. I've got that as well. It's neat.
And I like that, and the great thing with vinyl is that there was so much endeavour to be found with it. You're right. CDs, it was a bit more difficult, other than having a bit more of a booklet with it. They were relatively limited as to what they could do with it. Whereas with vinyl, you get colour presses, different gatefolds, stuff like that. And it just, you're right. It's taken some of the interest out of music. You've taken a whole element of the art of music out of music, and unfortunately that's the shame of it, is that there are a few still out there, but you're paying top dollar for that. Whereas when we're talking about these like quirky little 7-inch vinyls, you're only paying maximum £5 for these things quite often. And I saw a fantastic one on Instagram the other day, which is the Land Down Under. I think it's a 12-inch, and the actual vinyl is in the shape of the island of Australia. It just looks like, and it's blue, and it just looks so cool. And that's what I mean. It's just it's another way to express a different type of artistry. And get other people involved in that industry. We mentioned it again before previously about lack of money going into all bar a handful of videos these days as well, which is another whole element of the industry that's gone away.
Well, it's MTV, isn't it? It doesn't exist, so at least in the state that it used to. So people, the music videos aren't. Music videos were used to sell records, physical thing doesn't exist anymore. Obviously, so many people are streaming most of their music these days that there's no need to sell an individual song.
But the minute it's on a streaming platform and one person catches wind of it, you don't need to put the money in. As long as it's there, there's already the audience, so it's fine. They just chuck it out and then just let it go.
When these people have over, into the millions of people following them on Twitter, you don't need to put the effort into marketing as much as you used to. Anyway, right, okay, we've got off topic. We need to pick a third. Of the tracks that we will consider, because they're ones that got at least one vote, we have 1979 by the Smashing Pumpkins, 1973 by James Blunt, 22 Days by the 2220s, 19 by Paul Hardcastle, 7 Seconds, and that's it.
Essentially, flipping playlist.
So I would give my vote to the 2220s. Is that the band, or have I got it around the wrong way?
Yeah, that's right.
Purely because I want more people to listen to them now.
Yeah.
I'll take that. I'll keep 2220s as well. So yes, let's have it.
We'll go with that. That's a shame, Pete, because Tom, because I was going to back you up with Blunters, but that's fine.
I would have put Blunters, but people know people know him. There's no reason to be pushing it more.
Cool. Right. So our 3 picks from this particular list are, and one thing I would say about this is you could never say that we just go for the obvious ones, because we've completely ignored Chuck Berry, Paul Hardcastle, Steps, the Smashing Pumpkins, and one of the biggest sort of number ones of its time, Mambo No. 5, Lou Bega. So we're definitely going for the smaller groups this particular time. So we've gone for Trainwreck, 1979, Death from Above. We've gone for Bowling for Soup, 1985, and we've gone for 2220s and 22 Days.